Greetings, superior beings, greetings, supreme being. Welcome to Universal Peace Television. This is the broadcast. UN Ambassador Haley accuses Iran of violating nuclear deal. News articles review prevent World War III. Excusez-moi. So I want to start with the fact that preventing a world war, the third Jesuit World War prevention is much more important. Preventing the Third World War is much more fucking important than what they are talking about. So, in reality, Israel has nuclear weapons, Dolphin nuclear submarines, and Israel has nuclear weapons. They have Dolphin nuclear submarines supplied to them by the German people. So the question is, shouldn't Israel be sanctioned? They have nuclear weapons, and it's weird that they're sanctioning Iran, etc., though Israel is not sanctioned for having nuclear weapons. And Israel has missile shields, so Iran cannot pose any threat to Israel, not even with nukes. Preventing the Jesuits' Third World War is more important. So they're doing something to my eyes as well. I'm seeing sort of tracers and stuff with their hybrid insect microelectromechanical systems. I'm not feeling up to scratch, but it doesn't matter because we're going to read these articles. I've covered how to prevent a world war over Iran in previous broadcasts. So Iran is advised to allow the inspections, and the US is advised to first have an agreement with President Putin about bombing these facilities if that's their plan to avoid a world war, because President Medvedev already made clear attack on Iran will endanger the entire world, unquote. Not would or could in the HAARP article. That's former President Medvedev. So let's first read the article. I hope the tracers, whatever it is, will disappear. And also they're attacking me with directed energy weapons, my hands shaking, etc. It's quite annoying.
Haley accuses Iran of violating nuclear deal. U.S. ambassador to the UN details litany of U.S. grievances against Tehran and its Revolutionary Guard. GulfNews.com. September 5, 2017. Washington. U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy to the United Nations is laying the ground for the U.S. to potentially declare Iran to be in formal violation of the nuclear agreement. U.S. Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley said she doesn't know what decision Trump will make on the Iran deal, but stressed that it will be his decision alone. But Haley detailed a litany of U.S. grievances against Iran and its Revolutionary Guard. Many of the accusations date back to before the nuclear deal was negotiated. Decertification would be a first step toward the Trump administration fulfilling its threat to pull out of the deal. However, if Trump tells Congress in October that Iran is not complying with a nuclear deal it agreed with world powers, that does not mean Washington is withdrawing from the agreement, Haley said. She told the American Enterprise Institute think tank in Washington that the Iran nuclear deal was designed to be too big to fail and Iran's leaders were using it to hold the world hostage to its bad behavior. She described the nuclear deal as a very flawed and very limited agreement, which Iran has violated multiple times. Trump may make Congress decide future of Iran nuclear deal. nytimes.com. Nikki Haley, the American ambassador to the United Nations, spoke about the Iran nuclear deal in Washington on Tuesday. Aaron P. Bernstein, Reuters, Washington. In the midst of a nuclear crisis with North Korea, the Trump administration signaled on Tuesday that it is paving the way for a simultaneous standoff with Iran, suggesting it could refuse to certify that Tehran is complying with the 2015 nuclear accord, but the administration could leave it up to Congress to decide whether to withdraw from the deal. In a speech at the conservative American Enterprise Institute, Ambassador Nikki R. Haley, the United States representative to the United Nations, presented the administration's argument that Iran was in violation of the spirit, if not the letter, of the agreement. But by not actually withdrawing from the accord, President Trump could avoid a direct breach with the other signatories, Britain, France, Germany, Russia and China, which appear to agree with international inspectors that Iran has complied with its direct obligations in the agreement. Administration officials said there was little doubt now that Mr. Trump would not certify Iran's compliance again, as he is required to do every 6 months. The president said as much in July, when he reluctantly signed the most recent certification. If it was up to me, I would have had them non-compliant 180 days ago, Mr. Trump said. On Tuesday Ms. Haley went even further, saying that Mr. Trump would be entirely justified if he decided to decertify an accord he had declared during the campaign was the worst deal ever negotiated. If the president finds that he cannot in good faith certify Iranian compliance, he would initiate a process whereby we move beyond narrow technicalities and look at the big picture, Ms. Haley said. In the administration's view, the larger picture encompasses Iran's sponsorship of terrorism and its continued missile testing, all issues not covered in the details of the accord. Continue reading the main story-related coverage. Contradicting Trump, UN. Monitor says Iran complies with nuclear deal August 31, 2017. If report says Iran is abiding by nuclear deal, will Trump heed it? August 27, 2017. Trump recertifies Iran nuclear deal, but only reluctantly July 17, 2017. Ms. Haley said that decertification would not mean abrogating the nuclear deal entirely, but would force Congress to take a stand that many one-time opponents would like to avoid. I get that Congress doesn't want this, Ms. Haley said. This is not an easy situation for anyone. She added, but our lives are not about being easy. Our lives are about being right. Ms. Haley's comments came on a day when Mr. Trump was looking for support from world leaders for the most severe sanctions against North Korea that the United States has ever considered, a cutoff of oil flowing into the country. Such a move would require the cooperation of China, which supplies nearly all of North Korea's oil. The sanctions are likely to be the main subject of discussion in an expected phone call between Mr. Trump and President Xi Jinping of China. As Mr. Trump spoke on Tuesday about North Korea with Prime Minister Theresa May of Britain, Vladimir V. Putin, Russia's president, argued during a meeting in China that tightening sanctions would only lead to conflict. It's a road to nowhere, Mr. Putin said, whipping up military hysteria. This will lead to no good. It could cause a global catastrophe and an enormous loss of life. Danielle Pletka, Vice President for Foreign and Defense Policy Studies at the American Enterprise Institute, who moderated a question-and-answer session after Ms. Haley's speech, said the ambassador should be given credit for publicly laying out the administration's thinking on Iran. But, Ms. Pletka said, it is, frankly, a little odd to see the President of the United States punt his constitutional prerogatives down Pennsylvania Avenue to Congress. Just last week, international nuclear inspectors declared that the latest inspections found no evidence that Iran had materially breached the agreement, complicating Mr. Trump's plan. But Ms. Haley said that Iran's compliance was almost beside the point. No matter what Iran is doing, U.S. law requires the president to also look at whether the Iran deal is appropriate, proportionate and in our national security interests, Ms. Haley argued. One reason for the unease about simply renouncing the deal is the united support for it among the United States' European allies as well as Russia and China, whose backing for powerful sanctions against Iran were crucial. No matter what Iran is doing, U.S. law requires the president to also look at whether the Iran deal is appropriate, proportionate and in our national security interests, Ms. Haley argued. One reason for the unease about simply renouncing the deal is the united support for it among the United States' European allies as well as Russia and China, whose backing for powerful sanctions against Iran were crucial in forcing Tehran to the negotiating table. If the administration were to jettison the deal now, few of its former partners would likely reimpose sanctions, leaving Iran potentially far better off than it was before the deal. Although administration officials have repeatedly emphasized to European allies that Mr. Trump's America First slogan does not mean America alone, going it alone on the Iran nuclear deal would be just fine, Ms. Haley said Tuesday. This is about U.S. national security. This is not about European security. This is not about anyone else, she said, a remark that left several European diplomats in the audience fuming. While the North Korea and Iran nuclear programs are quite different, the North has a small arsenal of atomic weapons, and Iran does not. The decisions about how to handle them are closely related, many experts argue. If the United States abandoned a deal with Iran that the previous president negotiated, there would be little reason for the North to think the same might not happen in any agreement it struck. Ms. Haley dismissed concerns about North Korea's reaction. We should always let every country know, whether it's North Korea, Iran or anyone else, that we will always look out for our interests, our security, and make sure that it's working for us, not making sure that it works for everyone else, she said. Forcing Congress to take a politically difficult vote on the Iran nuclear accord would be similar to the president's recent decision on whether to save an Obama administration program shielding the children of immigrants from deportation. The administration announced Tuesday that the program was being rescinded but that Congress would have 6 months to legalize it if it so chose. Still, Ms. Haley emphasized that nothing had been decided. I am not saying this should go to Congress. I'm not saying we should get out of the deal. I'm not saying anything in terms of what should or shouldn't happen, she said. What I am saying is we owe it to ourselves to look at every aspect of this deal. Mark Dubowitz, chief executive of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, which has been pushing for precisely the decertification strategy Ms. Haley outlined, hailed the speech. This lays the groundwork for the president to decertify the deal if he chooses to do so, but it doesn't necessarily follow that Congress will reinstate the JCPOA sanctions, he said. Referring to the nuclear deal by its official acronym, Jonathan Feiner, who served as Chief of Staff to John Kerry, the former Secretary of State, said that Ms. Haley's speech sounded like a pretext for deliberately unraveling the deal, without offering a serious alternative or explaining how they would deal with the consequences. A version of this article appears in print on September 6, 2017, on page A11 of the New York edition with the headline, Trump may leave final Iran nuclear deal decision to Congress. Order reprints vertical bar today's paper vertical bar subscribe continue reading the main story related coverage. Contradicting Trump, UN, monitor says Iran complies with nuclear deal August 31, 2017. If report says Iran is abiding by nuclear deal, will Trump heed it? August 27, 2017. Trump recertifies Iran nuclear deal, but only reluctantly July 17, 2017.
Okay, let's first read another recent New York Times article on topic about this subject.
Contradicting Trump, UN. Monitor says Iran complies with nuclear deal. New York Times.com, August 31, 2017. The world's nuclear inspectors complicated President Trump's effort to find Iran in violation of the 2-year-old nuclear accord with the United States and 5 other world powers, declaring on Thursday that the latest inspections found no evidence that the country is breaching the agreement. Reports of the International Atomic Energy Agency make it harder to create an argument that Iran is in violation. Britain, China, France, Germany and Russia, which also are parties to the agreement, have all expressed strong support for it and have warned that if Mr. Trump withdraws, the United States would be isolated on the issue. So far, according to the IAEA and American officials, the United States has not delivered a list of suspect locations. There are 2 grammatical errors in the New York Times article: shouldn't according the IAEA, be according to the IAEA, and it not necessary for the IAEA. It's not necessary for the IAEA.
So that was the New York Times, and then we can see some other articles. Voice of America, Haley, if Trump does not certify Iran deal, doesn't mean US withdrawal. I'm noticing another weird thing basically. When I hover my mouse pointer over this article, then it's underlined and I can right mouse click on it and open it in a new tab. But then we see related coverage, and this is a clickable link. My mouse pointer changes to this with the bubbles basically if it's a clickable link, you see. Otherwise it looks like this if there's no link. And if I right mouse click on this, then there is no open in new tab. That's pretty weird. Ooh, what did I do now? If I click here, then we get the thing. Whoa. I didn't want to click on that. It's another trick they've built in somehow. That also happens with YouTube videos. I already clicked back button several times. And with YouTube videos it also happens when I right mouse click on something, then it shouldn't load that video. So they have done that somehow. And they can do that with wireless energy and by controlling the minds of the programmers of these programs with their time traveling neural network. So it's no miracle. Anyway, how Trump can reject the Iran deal without actually killing it. Bloomberg. So we can read some more stuff before. Well, my opinion is already it's better to avoid World War III, the Jesuits' Third World War, which they want to create to depopulate Earth to 500 million. A more controllable number you also find on these Georgia Guidestones and in their book quotes of these Luciferian people. And of course Skull and Bones, John Kerry, that want to create, or rather impose, a totalitarian global government upon the people of planet Earth. And via the mainstream media they give the illusion they are many, but in reality they're less than 2% of the world's global population. Many people call them the 1% basically. So instead of preventing mutually assured destruction, which is what they pretend they're doing, that they want world peace, they're creating universal war, their military order posing as a religious order. And the Jesuit pedo-homo-necro cannibals are always the ones to tell you where your enemies are, and they're never the ones to fight and to die. And they've also murdered my mother and tortured my teeth out of my mouth, etc. with their directed energy weapons. So they are cowards, and they care about none but themselves, their own group, the tribal as they call it. So they're few in number, but they advocate getting rid of 93% of the world's global population, also with their book quotes, and illegally refusing me my right to press charges in these matters of incitement to commit genocide, which I covered in my previous broadcast, the one before this one. Let's see if I've opened these articles. This is the hints. Yeah, okay. Trump can reject. Washington Post thing. And this one. Oh, a video. Oh, also on YouTube. Oh yeah, she's also controlled the position, Lisa Haven. And so is Christopher Green. So check out my previous broadcasts about controlled opposition if you want to know what it is and how to recognize them, etc.
2015 between the
Haley, if Trump does not certify Iran deal, doesn't mean U.S. withdrawal. VONews 98K 142 views.
deal struck in 2015 between The deal struck in 2015 between the U.S., Britain, France, Russia, China, Germany, and Iran aims to ensure that Tehran does not acquire nuclear weapons. In exchange, the international community lifted years of financial sanctions and returned billions of dollars in frozen assets to Iran. In an agreement with the U.S. Congress, the president must recertify Iran's compliance with the deal every 90 days. The next recertification will be in October, but President Trump has repeatedly hinted that Tehran may not pass this time.
I don't think Iran is in compliance. We wrote them a very tough letter to the, as you know, to the Congress. I personally don't think they're in compliance, but we have time, and we're going to see. We also put down a lot of defaults or potential default situations. I don't think they're living up to the spirit of the agreement.
Speaking to an audience at a conservative think tank in Washington Tuesday, Ambassador Nikki Haley said she does not know what the president will decide, appearing to downplay international concerns that the U.S. might pull out of the deal known as the JCPOA.
So I've already reported in previous broadcasts about the Rothschilds massively selling US assets and investing in cancer oil in South America, not in the Middle East. So that could also indicate that they're speculating on a higher cancer oil price for some reason, which could be sanctions or a world war over Iran, the Jesuits' third long-planned world war to depopulate Earth to 500 million, a more controllable number. And apparently they're allowed to advocate depopulating Earth. These people are not arrested, and people that expose them are tortured to death, as if they are the infant-eating pedo-homo-necro cannibals, so watch out.
This is critically important and almost completely overlooked. If the president chooses not to certify Iranian compliance, that does not mean the United States is withdrawing from the JCPOA.
If President Trump does find Iran in noncompliance, Congress would have 60 days to consider whether to reimpose U.S. sanctions. Margaret Bashir, VOA News, the United Nations.
Well, I'd have to guess they're going for sanctions based on the Complaint 88, the plan to nuke the zombie hordes, indicating that they want a more controlled depopulation. But that's just a guess, and it's clear that it's better to be prepared with a radiological water filter and storable food, with all these nuclear weapons of self-destruction surrounding us, and nuclear power plants and missing nukes, etc. And these people with insane amounts of power that want to get rid of 93% of us, tyrannizing everybody with their directed energy weapons. It's also covered in my previous broadcast. Time is running now, so let's see the other broadcasts. In quite controlled opposition, I might like Lisa Haven and Christopher Green better than Alex Jones, but Alex Jones may have more important information. So that may be the biggest controlled opposition source, basically. And controlled opposition also has to tell the truth, so they mix the truth with lies, religious BS, shape-shifting reptilians, flat earth, and other obvious lies, to label people that tell the truth about it insane, and to impose their totalitarian global government. It's the Jesuits and Masons that have infiltrated your government, depopulating and torturing instead of protecting and serving the taxpayers with your taxpayer money. So I've already advocated arrest all committee of 300 members and all the Freemasons. But that's not going to happen. If you want justice done, you have to do it yourself, because they control the judges with their torture weapons, remote torture weapons, directed energy weapons, their death ray of Nikola Tesla, the beam, basically, Mr. Beam.
UN envoy Haley makes case for U.S. to potentially pull away from Iran nuclear deal. Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, spoke about the Iran nuclear deal at the American Enterprise Institute on Tuesday in Washington. Aaron P. Bernstein, Reuters. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley made a case Tuesday for how the United States could back away from the landmark 2015 nuclear deal with Iran and suggested that President Trump may toss the issue to Congress. Haley did not directly champion a U.S. withdrawal, but she asserted that the nuclear restriction deal is a threat to U.S. national security because its structure leaves loopholes and discourages tough enforcement. "You can't put lipstick on a pig," Haley said. "We have to look at the reality that this deal is flawed." That appears to put her at odds with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who has argued that despite imperfections, the deal offers benefits including a reprieve from the imminent threat of an Iranian bomb and solidarity with European and Asian allies. Watch, Trump says Iran is not complying with nuclear deal. In an address to the conservative American Enterprise Institute, Haley left little doubt that she would support a presidential finding next month that Iran is not complying with the deal. That would be a first step toward a U.S. withdrawal and would trigger a 60-day congressional review that Haley said would be beneficial. Congress could debate whether the nuclear deal is in fact too big to fail, Haley said. "We should welcome a debate over whether the JCPOA is in U.S. national security interests," she said. using the abbreviation for the deal's formal title, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Haley criticized specifics of the deal and said Iran is trying to duck scrutiny by insisting that the UN nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, cannot inspect military sites at will. She met with the agency's director and got a technical briefing about Iranian inspections last month that critics said was aimed at finding a peg for U.S. claims that Iran is cheating. IAEA verification of Iran compliance with JCPOA is based on terms of agreement, not the ulterior motives of U.S. officials, nor of lobbyists, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif wrote Saturday on Twitter. IAEA says Iran complying with 2015 nuclear deal. Haley's larger critique echoed Trump's America First rationale toward foreign policy. If the president finds that he cannot in good faith certify Iranian compliance, he would initiate a process whereby we move beyond narrow technicalities and look at the big picture, she said. At issue is our national security. It's past time we had an Iran nuclear policy that acknowledged that. Congress mandated a quarterly presidential certification that Iran is meeting its requirements, which Trump has twice signed off on with reluctance. After the last such certification, in July, Trump strongly suggested that he would say no at the next opportunity. In October, while I have discussed it with him, I do not know what decision he will make, Haley said. It is his decision to make, and his alone. If Trump did trigger a congressional review this fall, it would come on top of a long list of must-do legislation. The congressional requirement was a compromise that President Barack Obama accepted to win legislative backing for the deal, which he chose not to submit to the Senate for ratification as a treaty. Upon a finding that Iran is not complying, Congress would consider whether to reimpose U.S. sanctions lifted as part of the agreement, and U.S. participation in the international agreement would be in limbo. Other parties to the agreement have said they would not walk away simply because Trump finds Iran out of compliance. But an understanding between the United States and Iran after more than 3 decades of enmity was the cornerstone of the agreement, and it is not clear how important or effective the deal would be without Washington's participation. The historic nuclear deal with Iran, how it works, Checkpoint newsletter, military, defense and security at home and abroad. For advocates of the deal, everything in our relationship with the Iranian regime must now be subordinated to the preservation of the agreement, Haley said Tuesday. Iran's leaders exploit the inflexibility of the deal, Haley claimed, as well as international investment in preserving it. Just last month, when the United States imposed new sanctions in response to Iranian missile launches, Iran's leaders threatened once again to leave the JCPOA, she said. This arrogant threat tells us one thing: Iran's leaders want to use the nuclear deal to hold the world hostage to its bad behavior. The deal is backed by the United Nations and includes the 5 major nuclear powers that are permanent members of the UN Security Council. Our allies very much know that we should be concerned about Iran's compliance, Haley said. No, they don't want us to get out of the deal. But this is the thing. Are we going to take care of our allies and making sure they're comfortable? Or are we going to look out for our U.S. security interests? WashingtonPost.com. Nikki Haley, rock star to the Jews and their knight in shining. Haaretz www.haaretz.com. Nikki Haley's Chutzpah, Jewish Journal. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley says Western Wall belongs to Israel. www.stead.org. Haley vows to veto any Palestinian for senior UN post, Jewish insider. UN. Ambassador Nikki Haley hints at Congress' role in making call on Iran nuclear deal. Some of President Donald Trump's advisors have been looking for ways to let him say Iran isn't complying without immediately killing the deal. WallStreetJournal.com. Washington, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley on Tuesday laid out a path for the White House to declare that Iran isn't complying with the 2015 nuclear deal, but leave it to Congress to decide what to do. Although the U.S. has said Tehran is technically abiding by its commitments, Ms. Haley raised critical questions about the deal, in an effort to give President Donald Trump support should he choose not to certify. To read the full story, subscribe.
There are no grammatical errors in the first two sentences, like in the New York Times. So am I subscribed? Am I subscribed? Oh wait, it's a Wall Street Journal. So that's mainstream media. So that's fake news. I'm not gonna do it. Otherwise I would have subscribed. Sorry.
How Trump can reject the Iran deal without actually killing it. There's a poison pill in Congress's authorization that allows the president to punt. Nikki Haley discussed the president's option to escape responsibility for containing Iran. Photographer, Stephanie Keith, Getty Images. Had Hillary Clinton won the 2016 election?
Containing Iran, as if they have to be put in a cage or something. They have their missile shields and Israel has nuclear weapons. Yet zero sanctions on Israel, you know. It's... What is it? Fucking weird, insane? Let me know in the comments. Or just Skype ProLogic999 to be live in this motherfucking broadcast. And I use this word because fucking making love is a lot better than what they're doing with their bloody wars and directed energy weapon torture and tyranny. Shall I show you the DU babies again?
The legislative compromise that allowed Congress to weigh in on the Iran nuclear agreement without actually ratifying it as a treaty would have been an arcane footnote, but Donald Trump won the election, and so an overlooked element of that legislation could provide a poison pill for at least the beginning of America's exit from the bargain that defines Barack Obama's foreign policy legacy. The provision is found in the Iran Nuclear Deal Review Act's requirement for the Secretary of State to inform Congress every 90 days about Iran's compliance with the nuclear agreement, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So far, the Trump administration has reluctantly certified Iranian compliance twice, but the president has also hinted that he would like to get out of the deal. On Monday, in a speech at the American Enterprise Institute, Trump's ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, outlined how Trump could do just that, even if Iran was technically meeting the requirements of the plan of action. Speaking of the 90-day certification process, Haley said, "The law asks the president to certify several things, not just one. The first is that Iran has not materially breached the JCPOA. That's the one everyone focuses on. She went on to say that the law also asks the president to certify that the suspension of sanctions against Iran is appropriate and proportionate to Iran's nuclear measures, and that it is vital to the national security interests of the United States. That's important because it gives the president flexibility if he chooses to begin the process for getting out of the deal. Because of the way the law is written, Trump can decertify Iran even if the U.S. intelligence community determines that Iran is adhering to the deal's limits on stockpiles of low-enriched uranium and is still allowing monitors to its known nuclear sites. For example, Trump could point to Iran's test of ballistic missiles as a violation of the UN Security Council resolution that endorsed the nuclear bargain in 2015. The plan of action.
So I think that this Bloomberg article is clear, provides us with more clarity than the articles read out so far. But perhaps it's because I'm listening for the first time, who knows.
Itself is not clear on the missile issue, whereas the resolution prohibits it. Trump could also determine that the deal itself is not in the national interest because of its structural flaws. Key provisions of the deal forged by the U.S., Iran and 5 other great powers expire between 2025 and 2030. By that final year, Iran will be able to install as many advanced centrifuges as it chooses and enrich as much low-enriched uranium as it chooses. Trump could say that is not worth the risk. Haley didn't say what Trump had told her about the nuclear deal or what she had advised Trump, but her speech Monday laid the groundwork for decertifying Iran if the president so chooses. She focused on the major structural flaws in the nuclear bargain, noting that there are no intermediate steps for punishing Iranian cheating or other non-nuclear behavior that threatens U.S. interests and allies in the region. They are counting on the world brushing off relatively minor infractions, or even relatively major ones, she said. They are counting on the United States and the other parties to the agreement being so invested in its success that they overlook Iranian cheating. She ended this section of the speech with the observation, "The Iranian nuclear deal was designed to be too big to fail." Haley is correct about the many flaws of the nuclear deal. The latest one came to the surface last month when Haley traveled to Geneva to meet with the International Atomic Energy Agency to discuss inspections of Iranian military sites and suspected undeclared nuclear facilities. Iranian leaders responded to her request by asserting inspectors would not be allowed to visit military facilities. At the same time, because the benefits of the Iran nuclear deal accrue over time, namely that it continues to allow transparency of its nuclear program and keeps its low-enriched uranium stockpiles low, many experts have concluded it's not worth blowing up the deal, as flawed as it is. So far, Trump has signaled that he disagrees. As I reported in July, the president came close to overruling his top advisors the last time he had to certify Iranian compliance and relented only at the last minute. If Iranian compliance is not certified, Trump may be able to have the best of both worlds. He could signal to his supporters that he is keeping his campaign promise by instructing Secretary of State Rex Tillerson to rule against Iran. And yet he still would not have killed the nuclear deal, he would simply have punted to Congress. At that point lawmakers could vote whether or not to reimpose the crippling secondary sanctions that effectively cut Iran off from the global economy. But they may end up not going that far either. If Congress brings back those sanctions, Iran is within its rights to kick out inspectors and restart its full industrial size program. So far, Trump has not said what he would do in that circumstance. Neither has Congress. Zog sucks. Project for a New American Century Jewish Zionist Wars, who's behind Nick Matthew North 1 month ago 2,088. Zog sucks. Project for a New American Century Jewish Zionist Wars, who's behind Nick Matthew North 1 month ago 2,088 views. Alex Jones exposed. Info Jews are going to go nuclear with North Korea in order to backdoor Iran. Ulrich Kaufman streamed 2 weeks ago. 18 views. Jesuits and Masons depopulating the earth for Global Gov. Also non-Jews involved and how to survive consumism. The dawning clinic clowning. A proper signal. The mainstream media. Never mind the global cancer chemtrail gas chamber. Oh yeah. It's because I wrote it and now it's there. Rock and rope, rap and roll, Jewish privilege. So that's not about the communist Holocaust, Holodomor Ukraine or whatever. 100 million. How many UN flags did those Brits burn? Experts agree, Trump is planning limited North Korean strike next month. The Alex Jones channel. How many UN flags did those Brits burn? Experts agree, Trump is planning limited North Korean strike next month. The Alex Jones channel. JFK is still alive, Rochelle Sparrow, Amazon.com. Beware the number of the titties. Is Gaddafi still alive? Stories from a former Libyan intelligence agent. 822 views 1 month ago. The Nazis harassed German male homosexuals, whose sexual orientation was considered a hindrance to the expansion of the German population. Habitual homosexuals were incarcerated in prisons. Many were later remanded to concentration camps following the completion of their sentences. The Nazis persecuted those they considered to be racially inferior. Nazi racial ideology primarily vilified Jews, but also propagated hatred for Roma, Gypsies, and blacks. USHM.org. United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. Org. Jews behind Nelson Mandela and subsequent white genocide in South Africa, with Jackson. 1,138 views 20 hours ago. Nobody has helped me with anything. YouTube illegally blocking videos selectively. Fuck Global Gov. Israel has nuclear weapons, Dolphin nuclear submarines supplied to them by the Germans. So shouldn't Israel be sanctioned? Israel has missile shields, so Iran cannot pose any threat to Israel, not even with nukes. Preventing the Jesuits' Third World War is more important. UN Ambassador Haley accuses Iran of violating nuclear deal. News articles review prevent WW3, cons, certified.
Oh yeah. Happy, happy, joy, joy. So depopulating is just not my thing. So I guess that's it for articles. Yeah, I wanted to quote what we read earlier.
Because of the way the law is written, Trump can decertify Iran even if the U.S. intelligence community determines that Iran is adhering to the deal's limits on stockpiles of low-enriched uranium and is still allowing monitors to its known nuclear sites. Bloomberg.com
Universal peace now. Universal peace now. This is Donald Trump. Prevent a two-state solution. World by any means necessary. Included in the two-state solution agreement that the allies of Israel and Palestine may not intervene if they go to war with each other to prevent a two-state solution. World universal peace now. Keys to you, Rick. Thank you for your idea for universal peace. Universal peace now. I, Donald Trump, am going to stop spending money on the stupid fucking military and start spending for universal peace. I'm Donald Trump. I own the Miss Universe pageant, and I'm here to answer your questions. Grab him by the pussy. George Soros and Margaret Chan are committee of 300 subversive of the club of members. The goals of the committee of 300 we flattened two cogs by means of but wars in the advanced countries by means of starvation and disease in the third world countries. The death of 3 billion people by the year 2050 people they call you substances.
The CDC did.
Don't let them touch you!
universalpeace.jimdo.com.
The government is criminal, okay? Thank you, darling.
AWOL, AWOL, or AWOL.
Our bodies have to last for the rest of eternity. Our bodies no more, no less. Get a radiological water filter and stable food and you cannot survive a nuclear event. Melt down without it. The more there of us, the better. Space is all about being yourself and not caring what anybody else thinks. Go, not yet. Great master. Great master. I have the guys counting my money. I hate it. The only guys I want counting my money are short guys that wear yarmulkes all day. USA Today, May 20, 1991. You're going to have a deportation force, and you're going to do it humanely, and you're going to have a deportation force.
Peace, peace, peace. Peace in your mind, peace on earth, peace at work, peace at home, peace in the world.
It's to try and get people orientated to think peace, like eat for peace.
breathe for peace and dance for peace and make love for peace, you know, to just have the peace like a mantra going round and round in your head.
Yeah, but peace, come.
Okay, that was pretty cool. Single ladies are welcome for the free shiatsu hand massage for universal peace. And yeah, I hope they work it out and first make that agreement with President Putin if they decide to do any kinetic actions or whatever they call it, war. You know, bombings, the tactical nukes, depleted uranium shit and stuff. So I think seriously, making America great again is also, many people might think it refers to less spending on wars and more spending on controlling the factors that control aging, because otherwise you die and every living thing dies. So it's vital to do that as soon as possible, so that we don't live eternally as 80 or 100-year-olds, but as like 20-year-olds and stuff like this. Okay. So I keep it real. This is about real things. And control the position is more about other things, though they also have interesting info, so I have to browse all these sources to find all these truths and supply them to you all. Donations are welcome on universalpeace.jimdo.com to help me make more broadcasts and buy a new computer, for example, so that I have less problems with broadcasting. So that would be cool as well. It's pretty sunny, so I temporarily halt this broadcast now for universal peace. More in my previous broadcasts about how to prevent world war over Iran and to create universal peace. I did a separate broadcast on this as well. And loads of other important subjects. If you click here on this name or BC Hoffman FFN on YouTube, you'll be on my channel and you'll be able to browse it. So don't forget to like and subscribe. And have a good time, hydrate, breathe, masturbate. I think that's good information. So I still support Donald Trump, but I am for universal peace, so I hope he helps prevent a world war and create universal peace. And more about the president in my previous broadcast as well. So all these things may seem like I am an alt-lefter anti-Trumper, which I'm not in reality. I don't consider these things important enough, so to me that's satire, basically, what they're talking about. I think that regulating the influx of immigrants, for example, to not crash countries and impose a totalitarian global government upon them is more important than some other things. And there are other important things to help the US and other countries prevent imposing that or creating a crisis big enough to impose a totalitarian regime. Phase 3 of active measures, and that's also described in the description of this video. So we need to use, that's their method to take over the world, their strategy, reversed active measures. So we need moralization, stabilization, generating an economic surge, and demilitarization in reality. The opposite of what they're doing for universal peace. Okay.